we are probably live. Welcome to the second panel of the day. I will be moderating. I'm Amelia Mink, and I'm joined by an esteemed panel who will be speaking to Data Innovation 101. The premise behind this conference is to being in data science since 2012. Since 2012, there's been a lot of, I've seen a lot that's sort of on the cusp that people still aren't talking about. And so that was sort of the driver behind this conference, is to highlight some of these things, even if there are some hot takes. I know Mike joins us, and he's the founder of a platform that's based on Graph AI, and it's still nuts that people are kind of sleeping on Graph, and Google's built on Graph, but we're still, and Graph theory was my first kind of purview into data science. But anyways, it's that's what this panel will sort of encompass, and also just some advice on pushing the boundaries in your organization, measuring ROI, overcoming challenges with implementing innovative strategies, systems, solutions. And so I'll let everyone do quick backgrounds first. Mike, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you're currently using data science, how you got here?
Sure. I have no idea how I got here. I strolled in. My name's Mike. I'm founder at Stardog. I'm our VP of engineering. Stardog, we're the leader in the knowledge graph space. I personally got my start in the field of AI, KG, and semantics 20 years ago while I was at the University of Maryland. I was at Fujitsu Research for a little while at the intersection of IoT and semantics for smart office environments. I failed to get my PhD, didn't like having bosses, so I found some friends, started Stardog, and I've been there ever since. I was the original architect of our platform, spent time in sales and product capacities, and have had the opportunity to speak at lots of conferences and spread the good word about knowledge graphs. And I'm really excited to be here with everyone today to tell some new folks about why knowledge graphs are so cool.
Thanks, Mike. Bosses are overrated. Jessica, you want to go next?
Yeah, so my name is Jessica Larson. I studied cognitive science and computer science, and kind of thought that data would be the best way to bring those two together. I started my career more on the analytics side and realized that was just really not for me. I moved a few years ago, I moved over to the engineering side and kind of haven't looked back since. And so I've kind of done everything in the data science space. So I've done some, data scientist type work, data analytics work, the pipelining components of data engineering. And then now I'm a data platform engineer. So I primarily support anything related to the platform, but not actually, moving any data. I'm not touching any data. So now I'm at Pinterest. I'm a data engineer there. And I just published a book in March on Snowflake called Snowflake Access Control.
Maybe drop it in the chat, Jessica, so people can check it out. Louis, you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today, and it's a pleasure to share my experience in the data innovation panel. And I'm Luis. I'm currently a machine learning engineer at Snap. Previously, I worked in the finance and e-commerce industry as a machine learning engineer as well. And I work on the large-scale recommendation system for millions of users. So the data science helped the social media industry a lot in many ways, including the search, the recommendation system, and digital advertisements. And the search recommendation allowed the user to have a personalized experience in the platform, while the advertisements give our company the opportunity for monetization and the growth of their revenue. We live in an information overloaded world, so the data science can kind of reduce the searching space to find the best content for the users. Yeah.
Thanks, Louis. Last but not least, my good friend of almost 10 years, Taj.
That's right. Call it out. Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Really happy to be here, actually. Always like connecting with peers and like-minded folks. My journey started about 10 years ago. I was in the people software consulting space, and I just felt like the market was shifting and trying to get away from ERP. I met some folks and they were into analytics at that time, working for Accenture, and they said, hey, this is going to be really huge, big data and Hadoop, and I had no idea what they were talking about. But really, the journey started there, and as I looked into it, I ended up, getting my master's and started off as a senior data scientist at Honeywell, and then over time, I've had the opportunity to lead some teams and really try to humanize machine learning and AI, try to make it easy for our data scientists, because I always remember how hard it was for me, getting good direction sometimes, but sometimes getting really bad direction from leadership and not having the ability to stand up because I was just a data scientist, right? I wasn't a leader. Now I work for Nike and I'm the head of AI for North America.
Thanks, Taj. So taking a step back, just kind of the meaning of data innovation. Mike, what does data innovation mean to you? Oh, let me unmute you. Okay.
There?
Yes.
All right. I guess I telegraphed it being the knowledge graph guy. So I'd say I'm excited about what knowledge graphs bring, because if we think about something Peter Norvig said a decade or so ago, more data beats clever algorithms. Well, we're drowning in data. We have lots of clever algorithms, but we really haven't made the progress that we've wanted to make in being more data driven. Like even at small scales, it's still tricky. Because what did Peter Norvig say just today at the Databricks AI Summit? People were spending, it's harder to make the data than to apply the algorithms. Well, we still have the same problem. It's been over a decade. I think knowledge graphs finally give us the opportunity to kind of take off some of the things that have held us back, really get actually more data, because we can encompass more than just what's in one silo. And we can also do the better data by having a more precise definition that we can then carry on through and let those algorithms be even more clever because they understand data in context. Because 34 is not just a number. 34 means something. It's got units attached. That's the number of friends someone has, the number of likes a post has. That means something. You have to have that context to really let those algorithms take advantage of that data.
And for the audience, what is a knowledge graph?
The TLDR would be data with meaning. Applying data with meaning, and knowledge graphs in particular are abstracted away from how data is stored. So the language of your data is the language of your business. You talk about products and purchases and people and the relationship that those things have, and you're not talking about rows and columns and keys and values. So that's the knowledge part. Graph lets you spread across conceivably all of the data within your organization and external to it, and start getting something approximating the entirety of the haystack that you're going to let those clever algorithms go and find the needle in.
Thank you. Louis, what does data innovation mean to you?
Sure. So as a machine learning tech lead in the team, for me, the data innovation means not only an innovative culture to grow the team and attract talented people with a growth and a lifelong learning mindset, but also a vision and a strategy to make a meaningful business impact in a creative way. And innovation means you need to do something new, means you need to overcome the challenges and accept the uncertainty. Personally, I think the innovation also gives opportunity to individuals to develop their career to the next level.
Those are all good points. Creativity, overcoming the challenges of being an innovator and introducing new ideas, new concepts. So we have a pretty broad audience. We're kind of half executive, half practitioner. But we also have a lot of budding data scientists, a lot of folks that are in their first jobs out of school, kind of new in their career. And then there's folks who have probably have seasoned careers and are could use this advice as well. For someone who's just getting started developing innovative solutions, or for someone who's just getting started developing innovative solutions within their current role or organization, what is your advice? Taj, do you want to take this one to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice is different for different levels of, you know, where you are in your career, right? So early on as a data scientist, you know, you really want organization around what you do. I think the hardest thing that I found as a data scientist was I had all this knowledge that was acquired through education and readings and videos and math, and then I was able to only apply like 2% of what I knew, and it was really hard for me to say, hey, am I going to forget everything, and you know, just not having enough experience. But I always wanted a system and a process to follow. I think that is really essential. I make sure that my teams always know what is step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clearly laid out for them. From an executive perspective, or you know, higher up in the food chain, I think there's all about business value, right? So it's all about, you know, how do we quantify that? What does it mean? Is it essential for the organization? And I always tell people that I don't want to run a science experiment. We experiment within the context of a project, but I don't want to come up with just a science experiment. We can fail as long as we knew what we were doing, and the failure is highly acceptable, and say, hey, this is what our lessons learned are. But what we don't want to do is, you know, waste the organization's money, because the part that most of us don't connect, because if you don't run a P&L, you don't know that the organization might be spending millions of dollars to build out the capability. And they're saying, is this all this team can produce? I mean, we have had nothing meaningful. And the data scientists are like, no, we've done all these models, we've prepared all this data, but the output of that, if it's not put into production, you know, isn't much. And so the ROI of the team is, or the KPIs of the team are, you know, they're just measured, so, you know, in that way. And it's really difficult from the executive perspective to keep justifying a large team. So depending on where you are in your career, I think it really matters.
And when I heard that explanation, one of my first thoughts was also just the importance of kind of maybe balancing that risk and balancing innovation, maybe with also kind of tried and true processes. But to your point, it kind of depends on the stage at which you're in, the sort of in Mike's case, he probably can't afford to not only just go straight into innovation. But if you're at some of the more established companies and just larger enterprises, maybe there's more of an argument for balancing the two. I don't know. That's something that people butt heads about a lot, I'm sure. Jessica, what about you?
So I'd also say I would have very different advice for somebody who's just starting off and, you know, is tinkering around versus a like seasoned organization, you know, department head, you know, making these decisions. If you're somebody who's, you know, just becoming a data scientist or a data engineer or whatever, you should totally lean into all of this new stuff, right? These are great learning opportunities to go tinker around with something. You know, take all of those opportunities when you have those. As an organization, however, I give kind of the exact opposite advice. I think, you know, as engineers, we just get super excited about sexy new technology because it's just like really fun and it's what makes us really happy and it's why we're doing this job. But we often lose sight of the problem that we're trying to solve. And so for any organization, you know, instead of having the rationale of, you know, XYZ's company is using this super cool technology, so we should totally go do it. We need to have like a problem, you know, solution oriented mindset of like, okay, what are we actually trying to solve with this? Like, okay, yeah, cool, they're using it, but what does that solve for us in our organization? So yeah, totally opposite advice.
No, that was good. Still kind of a balance of the two. Taj, what about you? What's your advice?
On asking the question again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's Lewis's turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lewis, what's your advice?
So yeah, so generally, I think I have 3 recommendations. First, I really agree on what Jessica just said. So I think some people maybe start from chasing some fancy models, but I would suggest the data innovation is like an iterative process. I would suggest that the organization should start from simple and iterate from there. So sometimes maybe a heuristic model or very simple pre-trained model can be enough to solve the problem. So don't start from complicated solution. I think that maybe add some error or some bias to the system. And second, I think is to have a data centric mindset. We know in the data science, it's garbage in, garbage out. So really take care of the data, do the data management, and define the right metric to optimize for the right direction. And last but not least is to develop the data team. The innovation comes from the discussion and the collaboration. So give the people flexibility and the ownership for their career. I think that would be good to do the innovation. Yeah.
I was talking to someone actually yesterday about the importance of data management. I won't say what company she's with, but that's one of their biggest initiatives right now. So I hadn't even thought about that being associated with sort of the premise of innovation. So since we kind of talked about this offline some because it's pretty provocative and timely, but innovation is hard to measure in terms of its return on investment. Todd, any suggestions for quantifying the implementation of innovation?
I have a few. So at no point in time should you not measure what you're doing, right? Because you're trying to improve. Think about digital transformation, right? So you have a process or there's something that's taking place, and now you are applying technology, and making it better. So you're making it better by 1%. So there has to be an inherent way. I met somebody about 20 years ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm a measurement guru," and I'm like, "What does that even mean?" And he said, "There's nothing in the world that I cannot measure. If it's measurable, like if it bleeds, I can kill it. So from the predator, right?" So he said, "There's nothing that I cannot measure." And he worked for NASA and he consulted with them, and like okay. And he gave me all random examples. He's like, "There's nothing that you cannot measure." So I kind of took that and kept it in my mind. And after all these years, I'm finally able to use it. So at no point in time do I allow my teams to work on anything. I don't care if it's a rough measurement, but there has to be some level of efficiency or some gain. And if there is a gain, there has to be a business value, a dollar value. So I always think about applying a dollar value, even if it's the back of the napkin, rough draft. There has to be, we're going to save X $million, or we're going to add, X plus $2 million to the top line. It's top line or bottom line, right? That's what businesses run on. And in technology, we sometimes get disconnected from the numbers themselves. But really, it's the numbers that run businesses, and so the executives are always responsible for those numbers. And if you want them to support you and your projects and your innovations and everything else, show them measurably what the efficiency is, and if you can measure it, even if it's what is the cost of not doing something. If we don't do something, the competition gets ahead, and maybe they gain 1% market share. Now, of course, it's a very general way of looking at it, but even that is measurable. There are a lot of industry benchmarks. So anytime I take on my teams take on a project, I always make sure the research is done on the business side, so there's a business justification. Then we take, we rank order, all of our work, and we say, what is the greatest business impact to the company, and how does it benefit, in this case, Nike? And that's how we would, decide on what goes first in the pipeline, what goes second, etc. So it's really, really, really important to be able to measure success of what you're going to deliver on.
And this is timely for you because you're starting Nike's Innovation Hub in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, we're opening a invitation to all. We're opening an innovation hub, and we will be hiring a lot. The office opens up next year, so I'll be heading up some of that function here in the office.
And here's your focus group right here for measuring the impact of innovation. Does anyone else have any suggestions for ROI? Measuring the impact. I was kind of trying to think of examples where it is kind of hard to quantify what the actual implementation is, but I like Taj's suggestion for kind of combating that with measuring the bottom line and the impact there. So inevitably, there's barriers for you or for your customers when implementing innovative data strategies, solutions, and systems. What are some of these that you guys are seeing? Jessica?
Yeah, so one of the first things I think of is like, there's net new innovation, right? Where it's like, hey, cool, we're using this new product, right? Typically it's not that, right? Typically it's that you're migrating over to something new. And something that a former manager said to me at one point that like I just think about a lot with migrations is for the vast majority of people, migrations don't really provide any value. It's a lot of work for a lot of users, and there may be users along that path where they're still going to have like a very similar, like same experience, but maybe it's really going to benefit the data engineering team, or maybe it's really going to benefit the data scientists, but maybe the end users looks exactly the same to them. And so when we think about it like that, I like to think about, okay, what is every, of all of the different groups of people that are going to need to change their behavior or, engage in some work to make this happen, what's the incentive for each of these different groups, right? And so, in this example, maybe the data engineers, their incentive is, well, this cool new tool is really sexy and I'm stoked about it, right? Or maybe it's going to make their lives easier. But then you have the people who are going and having to reroute all their dashboards and, all of this work that they're going to need to do that it may not really actually benefit them that much. So, when we look at the organization and like, your long-term goals, how are we incentivizing everybody so that it actually gets done in like a timely manner? And maybe that means that you have just hard requirements and you say, we're not really going to incentivize you in a nice way. We're actually just going to say, hey, you have to do this. But that's something that like I've struggled with quite a bit in my career so far.
Those were good examples. Taj, have you experienced similar kind of barriers with internal implementations or with your customers? Or I know none of your opinions reflect your companies, but and your well,
that's where I get my experience from. So no names, right? We're not going to name any names. But yeah, no names. Yeah, I mean, there's always it's always a challenge. It's always a juggling act. It's always what have you done for me lately? It's always a prove it now. It's always about building value. It's always about delivering value. I mean, that's a very high level way of thinking about it. And if I always keep that in mind, I've found that it's easier to be successful as long as you get stuck. Say, hey, are we delivering value? Go back to your first tenant. Are we delivering value? Are we doing what the organization needs? Are we moving the organization ahead? So as long as we keep all those in mind, I think that's really helpful for the team, especially being stuck in the weeds. You're so excited and you're spending hours, writing code or whatever, analyzing. But there's a much bigger picture that you need to connect to and help others outside of the team understand that in a very succinct manner, right? Like one slide, not 25. That's the difference.
And like Jessica mentioned, whether you see it or not, sometimes that's the challenging part of implementing these solutions and things that are going to make part of a facet of the process better, but maybe not everyone is going to get the impact of that or feel the impact of that. So what is the impact of the learning curve in implementing innovative solutions, Jessica?
I mean, kind of just going back to my last point, right? If you have, if you have some new tool that you need to use that is really hard to use and you may not, and you don't necessarily have a ton of buy-in, it's a way bigger ask of this other team to, hey, I need you to learn this so that we can all work together on this new thing. If there's a huge learning curve, like it may be one of those situations where you're going to be arguing with this team to get their stuff over to this tool for like the next 9 months. You're going to end up with like these duplicate systems for way longer than you want, just because you have that like hesitancy to move over, right? And you also may experience some attrition as a result, right? People just say straight up being like, this is just frustrating. It is at the end of the day, it's people doing the work, right? So they might just get way too frustrated and be like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? So yeah, I think about like, how can we make that transition more painless? How can we support the people who are particularly pained by this transition? Doesn't mean that we have workshops, doesn't mean that we're doing individual sessions, whatever, but really trying to minimize that as much as we possibly can.
Mike, we haven't heard from you for a minute. What do you think the impact of the learning curve is in implementing innovative solutions?
I think it's crucial. If you think about, I'm on the advisory board of Maryland's iSchool, so human-computer interaction is one of our fields, and we talk about affordances. So a door is a good example. If you make a door that's a push with a pull handle, people will walk right into it, and vice versa. So if you give people something they don't know how to use, they're quickly going to not use it, and that is true of web pages. It's true of doors. And I think it's true of training, like trained models. Like you have to build something that people look at and go, oh, okay, I'll pull that. I know how to, and that gets them going. If the learning curve gets hairier later on, well, you can have seminars, you can have trainings, you can enable people. But that first experience has got to be smooth. It's got to be easy. And you have to go where people think. You have to make affordances.
That's a good point too. And sort of kind of doing it right the first time. Otherwise, like Jessica pointed out, you're going to experience attrition, you're going to experience frustrations, you're going to lose users, you might lose employees. Our contractor at the house actually put our doorknob on where the other way around. So you reach for it and you turn this way, but it's actually turns the other way. So I can appreciate the door reference. So I think this is one of my favorite questions out of all of sort of the subtopics that we came up with together. Would you recommend, this is kind of for everyone, everyone chime in, but would you recommend that someone start with the data and work towards the analytics, or the other way around? Start with the analytics and work towards the data. Louis, you want to chime?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And I think there is a misunderstanding about becoming a data scientist. So probably people usually ask, do I need to have an engineer background, or do I need to have a PhD degree? Well, not necessarily. I highly recommend people who are in the early stage of the data science career to build a data science profile for themselves. So the data science profile means your learning path from some online learning platform like Coursera, or your data science open source project in GitHub, or the data science competitions in Kaggle, or even the blogs at medium.com. So that's kind of build your profile or your digital resume to the world, to many companies, and the companies will just try to reach out to you. So that's usually how you can master the skills as well as develop the careers in the early stage of your career. And second thing I would recommend to get familiar with the WES and the depth of the data science for different topics. So the WES means you usually get familiar with the end-to-end data science pipelines, from cleaning the data, building a data pipeline, building machine learning models, deploying the model into production, or doing the model monitoring, etc. So that's different topics, and the data science field develop very fast. So you can get familiar with those. And also you need to be an expert in one of those domains. So that's the depth of the data science. I would recommend to choose one or two directions to really master the state-of-the-art methodologies and be an expert of that. Yeah, that's my.
So you're saying kind of start with the analytics. Okay, so Taj, start with the analytics, start with the data.
Yeah, actually, excellent question, and I've been waiting to answer this one. So big debate. Early on in my career, it was all about knowing what to do, and then later on, now talking about inside of an organization, I work with really large ones. It's all about the data, for me, because as I said, your toolkit. Just bear with me. I'm going to use this example. You go to see a doctor, your physician, and your head hurts, and maybe you have a temperature, or you're sneezing, and they can fix you. But then there are other people who have more serious conditions, like heart conditions or something, and they can work with them as well. So the toolkit is really large, and that's what I think we're all talking about. Like all of us, there's a lot of training that you can take, but at the end, the problem that you solve, as long as your use case is clear and your data assets have to support your use case. That's the first thing I tell my customers, the business. I said, listen, you think your data is always amazing. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to find out that it's really not amazing. And they all disagree. And I'm like, okay, I'll show you, right? I'll show you what I'm seeing in there. And we always generate a report, and we make it really clear, really big numbers and charts and graphs. And so this is what your data looks like. And they're always shocked. And they've owned the data for 10 years, 20 years, and they're all subject matter experts on the data. And we can go in and quickly figure out that there's a problem. So whatever output you were looking for, does the data match that output that you're looking for? Is there a lot of signal, or are you dealing with noise in the data? An example of a firm I used to work for, you probably know about, we had a lot of engineering data, but it did not support the output that was being asked for. And it was always a mismatch. And all of us had to go to war, many times over every meeting, it's the wrong data. And they're like, what do you mean? We've been running this company for so many years, and you can't tell me it's the wrong data. So for me, it's always about the data, in the sense that the techniques, I always say the skill set is available on the team and people around us. Everybody's so knowledgeable. All of us have techniques, but if the data doesn't support you applying those techniques, then it's going to be really hard for you to get the output that you're looking for. So I would have a clear use case, understand that, have the business process, have the methodology, have your conceptual designs, everything else laid out. But eventually, the moment of truth is the minute you get access to the data, that's when it becomes real. And that's where the challenges may lie, I think. That's my take.
Taj is starting with the data.
Always.
Mike, which direction are you going?
I'm very tempted to say data. As a data guy, spent my entire career in data management. I think it ends up being somewhere in the middle for me. Data has a certain malleability. The atomic units of data, they're invariant. I'm 6 foot tall. There's nothing I can do to change that. That's invariant. What you may take from that is dependent on what kind of analysis you want to do. Am I a good customer or am I a bad customer? Well, depends on who's asking. So the data is what the data is, but how you interpret it matters. So I think they end up meeting in the middle, because you're going to massage the data. I mean, that's what data engineering is. Making a data set that has the affordances that we need to run our experiment. So we end up, I think, meeting in the middle always.
Totally. And to your point about that, oftentimes I think solutions and platforms are driving, or the analytics can drive and inspire the data, even in the sense of pseudo data, or kind of creating data based on these analytics. So we're almost out of time. Audience, put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. And I know there's a question for Mike too. Should we do the lightning round first, or should we do the question for Mike? Maybe let's do the question for Mike, because the lightning round will be a nice way to kind of tie things up. So this question is from Molly Colwell. Molly asks, how often can a knowledge graph be updated? Is it something that can be a live dashboard, or is it more of a monthly update type resource?
I appreciate the question. This is something that I think a lot of people get confused about when they're first getting exposed to knowledge graphs, because that label is often applied to just some data. And in that sense, it's no different than a good data set. I think, practically speaking, an enterprise knowledge graph, like we talked about this morning, it doesn't get updated because it doesn't contain any data. The source systems still contain the data, and the knowledge graph is accessing it in place to give you the most timely view of any of the relevant data that you need for whatever project you're currently undergoing.
Thank you, Molly, for that question. All right, the lightning round. In a word or a few words, what are you most excited about in data innovation? I kind of want to go ahead and guess for each of you, but I'm not going to do that. Louis, you first.
Decentralized machine learning in Web 3.0. I'm excited about that.
Web 3.0?
Yeah.
Okay. In like a few words, what is Web 3.0?
The decentralized data platform.
Okay. Thank you. I know you mentioned it yesterday. I was thinking other people might be interested in that too. Mike?
Can I agree with Louis? Web 3.0 is semantics. This is, again, we talked about this morning, semantic graph. That's what Web 3.0 was built for, decentralized data on the internet. I'm super excited that's going to come behind the firewall, out from the public internet and into the enterprise. I think it will change how organizations use data.
Awesome. I have had my head in the sand, apparently. I need to get with the program. Jessica, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, so I guess I have a little bit of a different experience because I don't actually really touch data. So what I'm most excited about is just any number of these tools that are becoming more and more popular that allow us to just do so much more with this team size that we have. Like, it's no secret that data people are the hardest people to hire. And so all overworked and we're all like just sitting there like trying to get more people on our team and trying to get more headcount. And, you know, we have these like crazy long multiple quarter iterations of trying to get more people on our team. And so, you know, being able to get these tools on board that let me work fewer hours and really focus on the things that, you know, need that type of compute. Huge fan of that.
And that's a good driver for innovation. More time with your cat, more time to do wallpaper, more time for a Pinterest board.
Exactly. And more time to like focus on the things that actually require a lot of thought, right? I don't want my brain bogged down by all of these things that can be automated when I'm trying to work on something that requires me to really focus, right?
Yeah, it's amazing what innovation can be sparked from stillness sometimes and kind of slowing down and not having anything to do or choosing to not do anything. Taj?
Yeah, to Jessica's point, I think about cloud as being that frontier that, while it's complex, it's still simplifying workflows and how to put things into production and move it along the pipeline. And so I totally agree with you, Jessica, on the, you know, wanting time back. So you can actually think, right, instead of just being a busybody, right, which is always something we fight. I think of this area as this, you know, opportunity, right? It's just, I still think it's so early. Our field is so young. It's been around for a long time. Statisticians knew about this and, you know, a long time ago, and they were just the backroom guys. And now it's got cool terminology and, you know, cool names and stuff has been rebranded and resold back over to us, right? Data centers became cloud. So, but I still think that we're still pretty early on, and you know, no matter what we talk about in terms of our North Star, I think that North Star just, you know, keeps improving, growing, and you know, we're still pretty early in the journey. I think there's so much opportunity for everybody to be a part of this. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and not to oversimplify it, but innovation really does build on innovation. So we're about at time. You're gonna go Google Web 3.0. You're going to download Stardog's free version and learn about knowledge graphs. You're going to build your Pinterest board, and they're going to come to Atlanta and visit Taj's Research Innovation Hub next year with
or come work for us. Yeah, you can work for us.
Or come work with, come work with Nike.
Yeah, we're going to build out a big hub here. So I'm excited about that. I love the city, and I want to give back by, using some local talent if possible.
That's a huge opportunity and so cool, Taj. Thank you guys for such a cool panel. This was really fun. And the recording will be available immediately following. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks,
See you at the next
everybody.
session.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.